My team has had me in Europe last week, which is a plus 6 hours from Washington, and they've had me minus 3 hours over here, and I don't know. I bring this crappy weather to San Diego, which I love this place so much, and but it does rain a bit in February. If you've been here, you well know. It's great to be with you today. Okay, Naval Air Station North Island, one of the centers of gravity of our Navy, and a time and place in the history of our Navy could not be more important for naval aviation. You got a new air balls. Let's give it up for the new air balls. As Doug Verismo knows that, when I was thinking about working to get him in that position, that it was Amanda, his wife, that actually carried the weight to get him into that job. And but they are a great team, and he's an extraordinary leader, and he is going to pick right up where Underachiever left off and just take naval aviation to the next level. So congratulations, V8. When I came into the job, I made a commitment because I, spent so much time operationally. I'm not a Pentagon guy, not really. I've served on 7 submarines, okay? I've been on the waterfront most of my career. In fact, I have never even served on the OpNav staff, and now I find myself leading that staff. And so I realized throughout my career, I've always been grounded in this, and it certainly hit home with me when I was U.S. Fleet Forces Commander, that I wanted to dedicate my 4 years in this job to making sailors first. I realized that all top 100 Fortune companies basically have one thing in common, and they unabashedly put their people first. They do everything they can to enable them, to train them, to give them the competency they need, because they realize that a competent person is a confident person. You come to work every day, you understand what you need to do, and you attack those tasks. And when you have great communication within your organizations and you couple that with all that competency, then you can perform at a very, very high level. Now, what can distract from that a bit is when things are challenging for you. And it's not lost on me that there are plenty of challenges in our lives, all of our lives. But certainly there are things in my control to some extent, some that are not so much so, that I can do to try to facilitate to make your life even more what I call frictionless. Those are things like the way I afford you good quality housing, make sure you're getting paid on time. I work very hard to make sure that daycare centers and base services are available for you every single day. The McPon and I, who is normally my running mate during these all hands calls, he's testifying today, in fact, on readiness, talking on your behalf in front of Congress today, and he will crush that. No doubt about that. We work every day with you as our focal point. Now, it may not be obvious to you that that's going on there in the Pentagon. It can be a bit out of sight, out of mind. Things don't turn very quickly. And but make no mistake about it, turbulent times, you have us working on your behalf every day and your families. And the way I look at that is very simple. I ask you to do something extraordinarily hard, is to wear the cloth of our nation, to go into harm's way, and make no mistake about it, we are in combat, okay, around the world every day, somewhere. And sometimes it's covert operations you don't even know about. Sometimes it's very obvious, perhaps in the Red Sea, perhaps it's interdiction operations in the Caribbean Sea, perhaps it's interdiction operations near the Straits of Malacca. You just never know, but the Navy's globally doing something in harm's way every single day. And the least I can do, given that that's the burden and the task that I place on you, is to do everything I can to make your life as good as it can be. I really want you to get paid on time, okay? That's extremely important to me. Your travel claims get liquidated efficiently and effectively. You have great nutritional food when you go to the galley or on your ships. It's just not a bunch of junk food. I want you to be trained and eat like world-class athletes. That's the way I view you, and that's the way I think you should be treated. And I need feedback on how we're doing in those regards. So I'll say a few words here because I just want you to see, spend a little time with where my vision is, but get your thinking caps on because we're going to go to Q&A, and I want you to give me some hard questions. I'll do the best I can to answer them. If I can't, I think normally there's some QR codes. I don't see them here today. But my team will tell you how to get in touch with me if we don't get to your question or I can't answer it. Because I won't BS you. I'll try to give you the heartfelt answer that you deserve. I have 3 priorities, and those are centered around what I call the foundry, the fleet, and the way we fight. I made that very simple because I was frustrated in my own time as a senior officer, with my predecessors when they tried to overly complicate what we do in the Navy. Sometimes you get these strategic visions come down and these highfalutin documents and, it's these, I don't know, I call it almost too cute by half type of approaches, buzzwords, and I really try to stay grounded in understanding what I want to resonate with you so that you can understand what you need to do and how you plug into that vision and how you plug into our Navy most effectively. I'm in a piece of the foundry right now. This is foundry. When we build a ship or repair a ship, that's the foundry. When you're in a classroom at an A school or a school, that's the foundry. When you're repairing an airplane in a hangar, that's certainly part of the foundry. The piers our ships are attached to, the galleys that we eat in, okay, the roads that we drive on, the gates, every single thing that's ashore on that incredible platform that's coupled to our installations, or it's all part of the foundry. But the most important part of the foundry is sitting right in front of me. It is the people. It is the total force of our Navy. It's the total force of our sailors, of course, the officers who lead, and the civilian workforce who play an indispensable role in making sure our Navy is world class, okay? So all of that comprises the foundry. We have used that as a bill payer for decades. We call it the total obligated authority. It's our top line in our budget, and we snap that line, and when it gets set, it has to balance. We can't operate in the red, and we have to make some hard decisions. And what has traditionally been the way we have balanced those books is we actually take it out of the foundry. You can do that for a while because, we have our leaders 40, 50, 60 years ago built an incredible infrastructure that we have been riding on the coattails of ever since. But if I 0.7 every year, 70% pay for that instead of 100%, before long, these base commanders, installation commanders, shipyard commanders, they run out of ways to actually spin the plates to actually get everything done. So every now and then there has to be, I believe, a CNO that comes in and really emphasizes the shore platform. Okay, and that's me. I'm doing that. I think it's important. You spend at least 50% of your career, and if you stay in long enough, it will be more than 50% of your career ashore. So it has to be world class, just like our ships are. The second thing is the fleet, okay? This is interactive a bit, all right? Boundary, fleet. The fleet is the way the Navy fights. It is the most decisive instrument of national power that has ever been created in the history of mankind. Nothing delivers combat power like the fleet, okay? The fleet is obviously very much a construct of ships and air wings and naval capabilities at its most kind of, basic definition, but it is the way we deliver our combat power. It could look like a strike group. It could look like an air wing. It could look like a submarine on independent deployment. It could look like a SEAL team. It could look like a lot of things, but it is the way we deliver that combat power, okay, is in a fleet construct. We do that because we have made a decision as a Navy, and I think I carry this forward, that the way we synchronize timing and tempo our combat power is best done from a fleet construct. Every one of the elements of the fleet carries its own unique capabilities that have to be timed in a way to deliver the overwhelming force that only the Navy can do. The way I've described that in my new released U.S. Navy fighting instructions, and please take the time to read that. I made it for you to read. I took time. It went through 25 or more versions before I slapped the table, just with the graphics in it alone, to make sure it was appealing and enticing for all of you to read it. And in that you will find I describe what the Navy's differentiated value is. What is it that the Navy does that no one else in the world can do? Well, that should be obvious. If I gave you a piece of paper and told you to write down some things, you probably would all get at least a 95 on that. We are certainly mobile. And when we get somewhere, we are sustainable. We are persistent. We deliver combat options en masse from the sea. No one else can do that, okay? And the best part about that is when we do it, we are sovereign. We do that from a sovereign platform. I don't need to land on somebody else's, coastline. I don't need to set up a headquarters in somebody else's country. I don't need to think about where I'm getting my water, my electricity, power, and light. I bring all that with me. And so when you put that package together, that is a differentiated value to the nation to maintain our prosperity, the global commons and trade, and then of course to the joint force. So when the chairman needs options, who does he go to most frequently because of that differentiated value? It is the United States Navy. When the president wants to actually start negotiating with Iran, who does he call? The United States Navy. We flow to that theater of operations with the Abraham Strike Group. In a matter of a week, we can be anywhere in the world. And we set up shop and we're ready to kick ass, take names. That's just how we roll. That is what the differentiated value of the Navy has been and will be. And I will not allow on my watch, at least, to be any chinks in the armor in that value proposition that we give to our nation and the joint force. So when you're thinking about where you plug in and your commanding officers thinking about how to do that, just deliver our differentiated value. Persistency, sustainability, mobility, mass from the sea, and sovereignty, okay? The second thing that you'll see in the fleet construct and where we're going is how do we actually do that at a global level all the time with all the demands that are on the Navy? Just think of the number of choke points alone that are in the world in which they could be contested that would stop the flow of commerce. And so it's pretty challenging with a 300-ship Navy that's in, at any one given time, about 100 ships are deployed, about 100 are on the blocks in some big depot availability, and the other 100 in some state of getting ready to go. So when you look at that, that's a fairly low number for the demands on this incredible combat force we call the Navy. So in that document, you'll see my idea how we can tailor our force to actually answer the threats we see today with the right capability for that moment, for that situation, and for that threat vector. So that's part of that as well. And at all of that stuff that's in the fighting instructions of how we will move forward as a fleet, all rest on what you provide, the enduring value, the main weapon system of our Navy, and that's the U.S. Navy sailor. So you fit very prominently in that. And all I ask from you is that you become masters of your trade. That's what I ask. And I want to develop you that way so that you can understand things at such a high level that there is no problem you can't face. One of the things that I bang on a bit with folks when I tell them that they ought to hold their head low is when something breaks on our platforms and you've got to call back for help because you can't fix it organically. That ought to be an indictment every time that happens that we ought to feel really bad about, okay? We should be able to say at sea, and if I got the part, fix anything that is broken on that ship, okay? So that's where I want a Navy to go on that. And the last F is the fight, the way we fight. That's why we exist. You entered this profession of arms, which is the oldest and perhaps most noble profession that we have, and you decided to become a combatant in the profession of arms, okay? That's what you do, all right? If you didn't think of it that way, I hope you do, and I hope you read and gain knowledge and check out my reading list. I spent a lot of time on it with the team before I published it because I want it to be books that resonate with you, that you can read while you're listening to while you're working out. When you're in your rack and you're at sea and you want to gain something, an understanding of what, the people are saying about my 3 lines of effort. People have written on this, and I've really selected authors that I think you really will like. So go after that and gain knowledge in your profession. That's what professionals do, okay? They're not satisfied with the status quo of where they are intellectually within their profession. They are looking to actually try to increase that knowledge level. So that could be how you're doing your qualifications, how you're, standing watch, who your running mates are, how your chief's doing continuing training, whatever that might be. develop yourself in your profession. And when you do that, the way we fight, when you couple that with our people that work across our warfighting development centers and the way we do our fleet constructs and our Comp 2X and the fleet learning continuum, we gain a set of skills to deliver our combat force that no one can contend with. I get asked the question all the time about, do I worry about the size of China's fleet? I do not worry about it. It's just more ships for me to kill. That's just all there is to it. No one can match the way we know how to actually bring together what we do. We know how to obfuscate, deceive, and maneuver to get in position like no other force in the world. And there has never been a time that naval aviation has not been more important in delivering that mass and that combat power. So you ought to be rightfully proud of where you are today and where you fit into all this structure. It's a unique time in our history. The administration that we're currently serving under is for the Navy. Congress is for the Navy. The American people is for our Navy. We have record recruiting. I'm bringing in 10,000 more sailors a year than our actual demand signal requires. So manning on ships is getting better for that. And we're solving additional problems at that level of manning that we've lived with for so long that we just couldn't do because we struggled making sure that we got the right people in the right place, okay? And so I welcome questions on that as well during this. I'll pause at that. I'll stop here and I'll just say thank you for what you do. Thank you for your commitment to serve. Thank your families for me. And with that, I look forward to your questions. And please step up and form lines and we'll take questions. Thank you. Good morning.
Pleasure to meet you today. Good morning, everybody. First question, due to the rise of AI, do you ever see that having a role in today's Navy or in the future?
Yes. So the question is, make sure everybody heard it. The role of AI, okay. You know, I find it interesting you're asking me that. You know, what I would like to come back to you is tell me how you're using it every day in your job. Do you feel like you are?
I usually use it to write up things,
Yeah.
like diet, just questions about my own personal life.
But not maybe necessarily integrated into your Navy job.
I do. I feel like it helps with like writing emails.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Expanding on things, but I feel like I can see it expanding more.
Yeah, so, you know, here's my position on AI. Anything you can do with artificial intelligence to improve what you do day to day and make that more repetitive, more consistent, and higher quality, start doing it. Sky's the limit on it, okay? We ought to be looking at this, and my view, and the way I describe this when I get asked this question, I try to lay this out as simply as I can, is I look at AI has three primary generalized use cases. Number one is, and this is one that's really important for me, and I'm not there yet, I need to be able to see the Navy, okay? And I know that sounds funny, but it's not as easy as you think when you have legacy databases and data structures that are older than me, if you can believe that, okay? That we are trying to integrate into a common picture that allow me to just ask it questions just like all of you do on ChatGPT. But if it doesn't have access to that data, then it can't give me answers that have been correlated across those data sets. So I need the data structure of the Navy fixed. I would like, you know, every day I get an OPREP 3 report. And on it today, I want to say there were at least 5 motor accidents and probably 3 or 4 motorcycle accidents, if you can believe that, just today. I had no idea when I got in this job what I would read on this combined thing across the Navy of what's going on in the Navy. But when you get to the very top, we got a lot of stuff going on, okay? And it's not very good. So wouldn't it be interesting if I could just say, hey, ChatGPT, give me a sense of the likelihood of a certain command, a certain region, a certain area of who is most likely to have a motorcycle accident, and then tell me some things I could do to stop it. I think it'd be great at that. You know, we know these things. I would tell you it's probably some, you know, less than 25-year-old, probably most likely a male, somebody that's been driving for like, you know, a little longer than brand new because they were a little afraid to go too fast. So they're in that stage where it's about 2 years, you know, of maybe experience. They're taking a little bit more risk. And they would create this shock group of people for me that I could go tell commanding officers and chiefs in the chief's quarters, maybe go approach these people and reset their awareness of where they are. And so there's this idea of seeing myself, and that just applies to parts or anything else that I want to look at and ask questions and trends. So that's case one. Case two, the idea of this, that it's very good at facial recognition. And what that really means is it can see something and then it can actually tell you what that thing is with high precision, not just faces. It can tell you what things on the bottom of the ocean might be a mine, okay? It can tell you a license plate coming into a gate is someone the gate guard ought to be checking, okay? So this idea that I can look at something with a camera or a sensor and match that to an existing database and help me make a decision is perfect for AI. You can imagine that's going to be used for robotic targeting. I want to program that into a smart missile. It's around, it sees a thing, and it goes in a very smart way, okay? So there's that sector. And then the last thing is what you're hitting on, and this is where all of you need to be doing this every day, is why do something more than one time ever in today's world of AI, right? It writes evaluations. If you know how to shape it, you put some criteria on a person in there, you give it some things that you want it to say, give it some format, some structure, pump a few examples into the thing, and out comes this beautifully written thing where you're just reading and editing it versus going from scratch. I'm okay with that. It's the ultimate plagiarizer. So if it makes your job easy, go do it, okay? Work package development at our repair facilities, okay? You know how many times we've had work packages to replace some seal in a pump? How many times we've done that? Like 10,000 times. And if you go to a planning yard today, you'll see from scratch, they start building this thing. Now, they'll probably pull an old one off. I'd have AI do all that, okay? And the last one I think on that category is just PCS travel. I talked a little bit about it on PCS. Here's Nirvana for your CNO. If you're going to move from San Diego to Norfolk, how many times do you think we've done that in the history of the Navy? Millions of times. Do you think we kind of know what it costs to do that? So if I just say E6, 2 dependents, 2 cars, 1 dog, leave this day, arrive this day, enter. It would spit out something that I would say to like 98.2% accurate on what the cost to do that. Why don't I just give you that money up front? And then there is no travel liquidation. It's over. That's your money. Go move to Norfolk, okay? If I told you to go to Norfolk today, you think you could do that on your own? Honestly, no. But and you would go YouTube it, Google it, whatever, make some reservations. Believe me, if I told you there was $1 million sitting in Norfolk, could you get there?
Of course.
So anyway, AI, yes. Thank you for the question. Thanks. Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir. Airman Diaz from the greatest ship in the fleet, the Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt. Who's it? Theodore Roosevelt in here? Yeah. Man, that didn't sound like the greatest ship in the fleet.
It's the greatest ship.
Okay. You need to work on that with him. Okay.
We're going to go back and work.
Yeah, you work on that.
I have a question in regards to your last F, the fight, and then the war-fightingness culture that the Navy has through this current administration.
Okay.
With PRT standards.
Yeah.
Just right now, the PRT is, if you fail it twice, you can get dismissed from the Navy.
Yes.
But on the first end of that, is there any consideration to having measurable physical fitness standards implemented into advancement as well?
Yes. Yeah, there is. This is a big MCPA. He's not here. He'd love this question. He'd sit there, he'd let you bring that thing right down the pipe. He'd hit that thing right out of the park. Yeah, he'd love that question. In his worldview, and I got to think through this a little bit before, always got to keep the reins on him a bit. But in his worldview, and your summary sheet, so you got evaluations, give you points, and you've got maybe some college education. You got these things that factor into your final multiple. And you'll see in there awards. I share with him this. I just got to figure out if it's exactly what I want to do. Getting points for awards has always been a little bit of an issue for he and I both, because there's such variation across the Navy on who gets awards and how they're done. It's just one of those things that in different commands, you know, when you meet a lot of sailors, you'll see people with a lot of medals, you'll see people with no medals, you know, so it's been a thing that I think the medal itself is the recognition. He believes, and we're thinking through this, that what ought to be in there is physical readiness. That's what you get the points for. That's the thing that would be added. Because when we want to shape behavior of an organization, you have to have a feedback loop in it. You just do. It's just the way we hold ourselves accountable. You know, left to our own devices, we won't hold ourselves accountable. That's why for all of you, I recommend getting some type of accountability buddy. If you care about it, and that could be girlfriend, spouse, you know, brother, teammate, shipmate, somebody has to be there with you. Go, come on, let's go. One more rep, whatever that might look like. So the feedback loop here would be when you get points for it, then you got some stake, you know, some skin in the game on that test, on that physical readiness test. And then, you know, so I'm kind of thinking through that. I think it's a pretty good idea. And I think that's the point you're making. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so, you know, I would say we take the PRT twice a year. When we got off of that with COVID, I'm not going to budge on that. We all need to be able to pass a readiness test twice a year. That's not asking too much. It's just not. Again, we're in the profession of arms, right? We need to be in shape. I mean, we're warriors, right? That's what we do. So I think it's important to do that. And this idea that we have certain sectors of the Navy that are in combat arms where the weight of their equipment matters to their performance is also a good thing. It ought to be checked. I mean, so much of the Navy is sitting behind a computer, okay? So you need to be cardiovascular and strong and fit and that kind of thing. But when you're carrying, you know, a 13-pound gun, right? A lot of ammo, body armor, a pack, and you got to go quite a distance, you probably ought to get tested in that condition. So I'm for that too. So, you know, I think it's a good idea to be physically fit. I like you fit across mind, body, and soul. All of it. You know, that's why I want you fed right. You know, I want your spiritual place to be in the right place. I want you to be, you know, competent. And I want you, of course, physically fit. You know, so that every day you feel good about yourself. And so anyway, that's the vision there. So as we think through how we're going to factor in what you're asking about, we'll make sure we keep the word out there on how that's working. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Morning, sir. Chief Pack. Question about the fight. So with this shift towards a more packaged deployment,
Yeah.
how do you foresee the NVG construct evolving to better deal with littoral conflicts, contested littorals, more joint and autonomous systems?
So the what construct?
The NVG, Naval
What?
Beach Group.
Oh, Naval Beach Group. Indispensable. I mean, it should go without saying, right? That, you know, that those types of forces that are going to be necessary to conduct that type of operation in those, you know, parts of the world is going to be an integral part of that. And so the question I really got to, you know, I want, you know, feedback on is, and I got this yesterday at the West conference that's going on, you know, downtown, is, you know, people were saying, well, I didn't see my community in these fighting instructions, and I didn't see, you know, the reserve component, and I didn't see this, and I didn't see that. That was purposeful. You'll see it's very written very agnostically for communities of practice like yours to tell me how you actually need to be assembled and tailored to deliver what I need, with the knowing that the demand on your community could be bigger than you can supply today. I can't know that for every one of the communities, okay? And then when you join that up with another, you know, force package to do the totality of a mission somewhere, then the synergy of that combination has to be thought of too. But here's what I do know as CNO. I don't have a Navy big enough to solve that around the world. So we either got to like go all in one place, and as soon as I do that, the president gets a vote. He is the commander-in-chief. He pulls me right back into the Caribbean Sea or the Arabian Gulf. So that's just a pragmatic fact. Then that's the way it's always been. Adversaries get a vote. So how am I juggling all this at once? So with the beach groups, you know, you guys need to work with, you know, NECC and other, you know, EOD teams and CB teams and all that force delivery to make sure that we are built right so that we can tailor it. And that might take internal changes to how we're organized today. I don't know. See, I don't have all the answers to that. And so everything's on the table to restructure ourselves so that we can punch bigger than our weight class today. So I need feedback on that. So that's what I would give you on that.
Yes, sir.
And I need it from experts like you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My name is Greg, CNAF, CTC Program Manager. I had the pleasure of reporting up to you last year on a lot of great progress that we made for session-level training and for establishing our career-long learning continuums for all of the ratings of our enlisted sailors. Now we face significant budget constraints. I'm sure you're very well aware of this, sir. I know you are.
I am.
And N1 has essentially been drained dry for RRL TOA, and other high nines are unable to support and fill those gaps. So my question is really, how would you advise we best move forward and make that shift from supporting apprentice level training to supporting journeyman level training, and really supporting the foundry, the fleet, and the fight, knowing that we have these constraints that are unsupported by the resource sponsors, having some really great modernized curriculum and courseware, and just not being able to get those courses across the finish line. So how do you recommend we move and make that shift?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the work you've done there and the ownership of that daunting task. And I'm going to take a second and describe that to the group before I answer your question. In the repackaging of Ready Relevant Learning, we now call it the Career Training Continuum. I did that because Ready Relevant Learning had its time and place where it seemed like the right training at the right time and the right amount, okay? But that whole thing is so much more than that. And so that was very classroom kind of definitions, and just didn't capture the totality of the Navy's premier training program. And so what she's talking about is we have now mapped across 84, is that right? Yeah, it's a number like that, sometimes plus or minus one. Yeah. So there's a lot of rates, 84 rates. Every single person in this room has been mapped to what we are requiring you to know when, and if we are meeting that or not, okay? And you can imagine that generated a lot of training gaps, a lot of them, thousands of them, where you're supposed to have been trained in a thing and we just didn't do it, okay? Now, sometimes people set requirements like that and it should have never been set. So an answer could be, I just kill that training requirement, it's duplicative, or whatever the reason might be. But so many of them are legitimate training requirements. But now I at least know what I didn't know before. I know what those things are. So that was Herculean work by so many people to identify that. And then in the content delivery modernization, so that we actually are delivering content in a meaningful way so that you can digest that. And again, in your journey, becoming a master at what you're trying to be a master in has got to stay on track. So I have not given up on funding this. So believe me, this is just round one, okay? You know I'm going to get money in that. This is like one of my passions. We'll figure that out. I will figure the money out, okay? And so you always see, again, part of the foundry where we train is a bill payer, to your point. And so things that I need to help me to bridge there, okay, is we have found that when I pushed this to the type commanders, that the ownership finally got in the right place. Nothing can keep up with what is being demanded on our ships for improved training and me trying to go fix that, you know, to meet that demand. And so what I ask for the leadership in this room is to take a hard look when sailors report. Is your qualification process really, really good? That's the bridge. You know, a lot of times I've got this image in my head, and it's not how we do it in the submarine force, but it's my image of how a lot of our Navy goes to the printer and hits the PQS button. We print the qual card there, and we kind of dutifully go through this thing, but that qual card could have been written like 5 years ago. It has not been pen and ink to be necessarily capture some of the things that needed to be updated in it in a timely manner. Nothing stops the commanding officer from fixing that. So the bridge between the classroom and then the actual watch station when you're finally there is qualification. It always has been, it always will be. So that is the bridge. And if that's not healthy, then we need to get after that. I know that Admiral Verissimo understands this. So we need to holistically look at the qualification on board. That's the real-time Band-Aid that has always been in place that keeps the training. I can't train you. In fact, I would argue for everyone in here that's been to an A school and a C school, if I gave you the final exam that you passed when you were at C school right now, and if that's been more than like 2 days ago, you probably wouldn't pass it. Okay? And that's not an indictment on anyone in the room. I wouldn't pass the test I took back at, with the air either. So, but what we're relying on for some reason is that I train people to such a level that there's some belief that that knowledge stays constant through the time they're on board the ship. And it's just not a good assumption. So what the school is really trying to do, and I'm telling you this because this is a bit philosophical because I'm trying to get the rudder over on this, is trying to teach you how to think. It's trying to teach you how to problem solve. It's trying to teach you how to troubleshoot. It's trying to teach you about component levels that are in how things are built. It's trying to teach you some theory and some of the underlying physical phenomena that actually govern that theory. So it is in that vein that I think we got to improve our training. And then through this real-time collaborative effort that you're talking about for modern content delivery, put that on top of that kind of theoretical work that we need to improve on. So I'll get the money, and you just keep doing what you're doing because you're crushing it. I am sincerely appreciative of you personally and all the work you've done. Thank you. Yep.
Good morning, sir. I am E.T. Dukai, and I'm a local first lieutenant. And my question for you today is, why doesn't TRICARE cover medical helmets for infants? Is there a way that the policy can change so that they can either be fully covered and or partially covered for the sailors and juniors?
Yeah, the question is about home visits?
No, sir. It is for medical needed helmets for infants.
Oh, helmets?
Yes, sir.
I have no idea. I have no clue. It seems like a valid question. We'll take it down. I'll get you an answer, give it my team, and I'll get you an answer on that. I can't even speculate on that. Yeah, it seems crazy. I mean, that's like a real thing that is needed, not unlike any other type of appliance, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, sir.
It's a common, there's certain infants that need these devices,
Yes,
and you're
sir.
saying TRICARE doesn't cover it?
No, sir.
It seems ridiculous. So yeah, I'll take that on. I'll look it up and get an answer back to you.
Okay.
I wish I could give you a better answer, but I'm being honest with you. I don't know.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Okay.
you for your time.
Yep.
Good morning, sir. I am A.T. Airman Butterfield from the HSM 49 Scorpions. Thank you again for taking the time to answer our questions today. The warfighters in my avionics shop specifically were wondering if there would be an increase in the budget for uniforms due to the additional strain from the increase in PRT.
Oh, okay. It's a good one. Yeah, so you're saying we do more PRT 5 times a week. We wear out our equipment a little faster than the original assumption. And maybe there could be a plus up to buy more PT equipment at a higher periodicity. I have that right? I'll take that on. Yeah, I've never been asked that. It's a good one. Yeah, I like that question.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. No, it's really good. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. I'm Pius Correga from the. I have a question.
Let's see if there's any learning curve here. How about the Theodore Roosevelt? Okay.
So
All right.
my question is in regards with how the base is. I like how the SWIFT is implemented from about a month ago. I suggest that I have a feeling that another SWIFT lane at the very right where the front of the gate would make it a little faster because I noticed that the traffic on the bridge is not that much ever since that SWIFT lane is implemented. And I would like to see SWIFT lanes implemented also more commonly on more bases too to reduce the traffic.
Can you describe the Swift lane?
The SWIFT lane is very straightforward.
Let him.
It's like when you don't even have to roll down your window or pull in out your tag. All they have to do is like kind of scan your face or something, and then you don't even have to pull up your tag.
Sounds like
So
AI,
that-
doesn't it? Yeah.
Correct, sir.
Yeah. I just wanted to hear your description. I agree. Yes, we should scale that. I think it started here. I think Brad Rosen maybe was the guy who took some effort here.
CNO, if you wouldn't mind, please. I think this question's for me.
Okay.
All right. So for my shipmates, right, we do have the biometric Swift Lane program, and it is a pilot program that we're doing here to increase traffic. The initial data says that we move traffic about twice as fast, sir, through the gate, about 600 cars per hour as compared with 325 for my NAs that are scanning IDs. So that is our pilot program started in Amarillo, correct, sir?
Yep.
And we are looking to expand it. Right now we have of the 5 lanes in the front gate. We're working on adding 2 more in there, so you'll see more in the future. So
Super.
thank you, sir, for
All
letting
right.
me jump in. Thank
Yep.
you.
Good. There you go.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir. My
Good morning.
name is 82 Solis. I'm with CNO North Island. Since assuming charge in August of last year, what's been the biggest hurdle you've had to overcome at CNO?
That the things I thought would be easy to implement are really harder than hell. It's like, God almighty. Things that I think what I consider to be kind of a softball, you get in that 5-sided building, there is no easy. It is like Thunderdome in there. And it's crazy. So seriously, it's, I didn't realize the extent that the job would have kind of a, this political piece to it. It's got it's challenging from a standpoint of resources. It's challenging from a standpoint of policy. And what seems to be something that a 40-year-old veteran would think is common sense is not always viewed that way. So that's what's been surprising, okay? So that's kind of maybe on the negative side, but that's my job to take on. I have to work that every day, just like we all have got our crosses to bear. But what's been on the positive side, which I think maybe is just, maybe more important, is I get to see at the highest levels of the Navy, just a compilation of the great things that we're doing every day. And it's just eye-watering. It really is. You think you know it because you're always in some smaller subset of the Navy. But when you put it all together, everything we're doing day to day in the Navy is just really extraordinary. And again, I just think we're just crushing it. I mean, I just couldn't be more proud of it. It's really, really good. So, I mean, so just keep doing what you guys are doing on that. And I'll fight these other fights, okay? And what I'll do is I do try to be completely honest with you. That's what I think I owe you. I think everyone in this room is smart enough and mature enough to understand that I don't have the ultimate control over everything I'm trying to do. Other people get a vote in this. But I just want you to know that I'm there for you, okay? And so is my wife, Donna. She and the McPon's wife are both co-ombudsman at large. She's here today somewhere, I think, here on North Island, I think, just trying to understand what the families are going through, like infant helmets, something I didn't even know was a thing. So we'll get after this stuff. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that question. I like some of these earthy questions like that, Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'm Chief Legalman Brittany Goldaddy, Naval Special Warfare Basic Training Command and Center. Throughout your career, I'm sure you're familiar with the administrative separation process. My question pertains to assets. Forgive me, I wrote it down to make sure I say it properly.
Okay.
We have certain types of assets that meet criteria where PERS, Naval Personnel Command, is the separation authority. These are cases such, for example, have PTSD, TBI, where the actual reason for separation could be misconduct, it could be non-disability, mental health issues. Right now, for the past several years, it takes upwards of 12 months for a case from the time we send it to PERS in order to get a message back. During that time, the sailor's condition worsens, and regardless of engagement from various echelons in the chain of command, it still takes upwards of 12 to 14 to 16 months to get an answer back, which impacts the sailor, it impacts the chain of command, and ultimately impacts the mission. Is senior Navy leadership aware of this ongoing issue because it's been going on for many years, and if so, is there a plan to resolve it?
You've hit on kind of a pet peeve of mine. Is any of these type of processes like that just linger? I can't stand it. When I have in my mind, somebody's package is sitting at PERS 8 or wherever these things go into purgatory. And do you really think that's being worked on every single day? I mean, that's like somebody's getting after it. It's just not the way it is. There's some RFI thing out there, we need another, T crossed, I dotted, it's just delays and delays. LIMDU is no different. LIMDU, seriously, the LIMDU program is another one. It's everything you just said, just a different causality. Where, we have these things where we have these sprint meetings and, all we do is talk about it, but we don't get after it. And what happens with the command in these situations, in many instances, a couple things. Number one, that person still counts against their books. So they can't actually get the replacement for that sailor because they're still on the rolls. So that hurts Manning because that's not a contributing sailor to the overall effectiveness of the unit. The second thing is, and you've nailed it, these sailors that are in this, lying in wait for their disposition are getting worse, or, perhaps even doing more destructive behaviors. And then I've got to take bandwidth to oversee that group of people, which takes away from the leadership. So nothing about it's any good, okay? So you've hit on a thing that you've exposed something in this, on the ADCEP side, that I'll take back. I'll look at it and see, what is the causes of, why we can't turn this pretty quick. I think most of these things, the answer is known fairly quickly. Would you agree with that? I mean, it ought to be pretty black and white. And I think that way on LIMDU as well. I mean, somebody either has something that they can recover from medically or they can't. And if they can't, I don't know why that's not a, kind of a weeks thing, not a months or a years thing. And if somebody's done something that meets the criteria to be administratively separated, why is that not a weeks thing instead of a months thing? So I got it. I'll take that one. Yeah, my team's got that. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. I'm 83 Robert Chun from HF Sim 73 Battlecat. I wanted to ask you, with the recent successful extraction of Maduro and Venezuela, and with the country itself praising our actions, and with the other world leaders kind of not being so happy with it, how do you feel that this changes our current mission directive as the Navy and how we go forward fighting terror?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of these things that when you get in at my level in particular, you end up with these kind of opportunities, if you will, to do something that's a bit one-off. And certainly the Navy supporting in its role to a law enforcement operation to apprehend Maduro and his wife is certainly a unique one for me, okay, no question. That's an FBI operation, as I'm sure you well know. But to do that, they solicited the support from Special Forces. In this case, it was Army Special Forces. So the Navy's role in that was basically, for all intents and purposes, as part of the joint force operation that conducted that apprehension under FBI authorities, was to obviously provide a landing pad for that, okay, for soft forces, to provide some air cover for that operation, to provide ISR for that operation, and to just generally have a presentation of military and naval combat power if something were to go wrong. So that was the Navy's role in that. All that I'm 100% behind, and one can argue, in fact, a lot of Navy involved with the coordination and planning of this, because when you want to do joint force operations at that scale, that can only be done by people that are currently in the Navy, and a lot of that expertise is that from Nautic, and with Pops himself as part of that. And so to be able to go do that across that level of joint integration is a very, very challenging thing. Now you think it's, at the end of the day, it's getting two people. But what it takes to go do that safely without any casualties is timing, coordination across cyber and across all these things that had to be done to go do that. So that's kind of the military side of it, is in a support role to the FBI. From the, I think what you're getting at though is the impression of that, and maybe where people have an opinion of that. I think there's in the national security strategy and certainly in the national defense strategy, the Western Hemisphere has been made the actual primary focus of the president, okay? I think the president sees that we're under attack in a lot of different domains and from a lot of different threat vectors. He'd like to protect us from inbound intercontinental and cruise missile attack, hence the Golden Dome. He wants us to be able to project power and carry U.S. sovereignty. Basically, we're always an away game. Hence, you see the emphasis on shipbuilding across the board, and certainly with building, what is going to be the most incredible platform in the world is the battleship. We bring that back into play. So if you're a surface sailor in here, get on that thing. It will be hateful, okay? And so that's going to be great. And so, but that's again to protect the homeland. And then the last thing, to your point, is just the illicit flow of traffic into our country. People, drugs, guns, whatever it might be. as, you know, there's a demonstrative way to go after that instead of talking about it. And so he's made that a kinetic operation, and to really to protect that flow into our country. So all that is because of the emphasis in the Western Hemisphere that's part of the national security strategy.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Good morning, sir.
I can hear you.
Good morning, sir. AWR2 Lopez with HSM 78. I have a question regarding SDAP for SAR crewmen. It's currently rated at 24 per command, but due to your increase in recruitments every single year, there might be air crewmen that share the same SAR qual, however, might not be getting paid that SAR pay. Do you foresee the Navy changing that and increasing that to allow all SAR crewmen to get the pay?
I got you. So there's some special duty pay, and it's based on a fixed number today, but as I grow that, will more people get that special pay?
Yes, sir.
I'll take that on. I mean, seems logical. I just couldn't answer it here off the cuff, but yeah, I like the question. And my team will take that on to see if that's the case. Because it applies to a lot of use cases, right? I mean, as I grow and I get the numbers right and get these divisions healthy and these work centers healthy and all that, there could be a logical question that these, you know, these special duty pays scale with that. So I can't speak to the specific on SAR, but it seems a logical question. We'll take on and look at it.
Thank you for
All right, yeah, thank you for bringing it up.
Good morning, sir. My name is ET2 Govea. I am with Ground Electronics here at Naval Base Coronado. I'm a radar technician here.
Okay, yeah. You got a little fan club there. Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry for bringing AI back up, but I know
It's okay.
you touched on your 3 lenses and your vision of the rollout of generative AI within the United States Navy. But I just wanted to ask, what are the risks, if any, that you foresee with a largely kind of Wild West technology?
Well, you know, one of the risks of anything where you got an easy button is we just get dumber. Okay? And I don't want us to get dumber. I want us to get smarter. All right? So that's a risk. You know, we got a little bit of that going on now. You know, if I ask you, like, how far is it between here and the closest in and out, most of you immediately go to your phone instead of like it's about 10 minutes away. Okay? You know, so this idea to estimate and just think through things, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. We got, you know, the infinite book of knowledge called our iPhone. And so there's always a concern that the more I offload to something that's actually doing the brain power, that I lose the ability to actually think through very challenging and cognitively effort-laden things that need that type of brain power. And that's definitely a bad thing. So there's no question on that. The other thing is bias, okay? Anytime you've got an algorithm that's helping you do something, it was done with some type of, I'm gonna get a little geeky here, but everybody hang with me, okay? It's done through some type of training data set. So I trained the weights of the correlations that are being made using a training data set. Now, you see this every day with your devices. You may find how you're targeted with such exquisite knowledge that you might want to buy a Ford F-150. Like, how did I know that? I wasn't even talking about that. You know, but that I am thinking about buying a Ford F-150. That's because it knows that everybody that wears, you know, Nike tennis shoes and eats at McDonald's wants to buy a Ford F-150. And you go like, well, what do those things have to do with anything? It doesn't matter. It's just that correlation is there, okay? So through these correlations, we can target populations to do these things. But that training data set that set those correlations can be biased. There's a famous use case in this, and you'll maybe think this is interesting, that Amazon got tired of trying to sift through 10,000 applicants every month for people to work at Amazon. So what did they decide to do? They thought that they would go create a algorithm to help them make hiring, okay? So that sounds like a good idea, good use of AI. So what they did is they went and found, you know, 5 or 6 use cases in their company who were high-performing people. And so what they did, these people all went to some Ivy League school, and they all played lacrosse, okay? And that got into the correlation. Applied to 10,000 people to that now newly found algorithm, popped out, you know, a bunch of people that only went to Ivy League school and played lacrosse, okay? Well, that's obviously no good. That wasn't the intent. It's a famous use case. You can go look this up. So these things have biases. And so we have to be aware of those biases, okay? They just do. And so they can give you an answer that's inherently consistent with its own data set, but not broad enough to bring in the variability that needs to give you a holistic response. So we have to be careful on that. So there has to be what we call countervalent type of things that actually know whether or not that's in check or not. So those sets of guardrails, if you will, have to be put in place on AI. It has to be. And so, so I think your point's valid. You know, I need to think through how to implement some of those guardrails for the Navy, to your point, before it becomes the Wild Wild West. So I think you're on to something here. So I'll take that back. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Sir.
thank you.
Morning, from Air Department, USS Theodore Roosevelt. Just wondering, from your own perspective, what would you say are some of the greatest challenges facing the Navy moving forward, and how does the Navy plan to address those? One of those that I have in mind is the sustainability of recruitment rates as they're currently up right now.
Okay, yeah. The challenge for the Navy, I think, going forward is a very uncertain geopolitical environment. You know, we're going to be stressed. Our ship count, if you will, which matters because it ties to our air wings and everything else, kind of is a scale factor of your ships, you know, has really been roughly the same for the last 25 years. We've been kind of decommissioning and building about the same rate, you know, so we've stayed at about 300 ships. But the need and demands on the Navy has never been greater. So what kind of worries me is, will I be able to answer the call if I need to? That's why I'm really trying to do these things like combat surge ready and making sure that I can go if I need to. Because, you know, I never want to enter a fair fight, do you? And I never, sure as hell, never want to lose. That's just not even on the plate, okay? So, I mean, we only know how to win, and so I have to always be thinking about how to always win. So that bothers me, okay? So what are some of the constraints here that are keeping me from just sleeping like a baby at night, knowing that it's all good? Obviously humans. I've talked about being a sailor's first CNO, and I am. So these recruitment rates, I'd love to sustain them, but I've got to get you through the training pipeline, hence the great question on the career-long training continuum over here. That's important, okay? So people and training gaps, okay, and gaps at sea, all that's on my mind. It doesn't do any good in combat if I Winchester my magazines, okay? You just look at what's, you know, constraining Ukraine today is, you know, they just don't have the ammunition to culminate that conflict. Neither does Russia. So, you know, the thing that, you know, any service chief has got to have is deep magazine, okay? That means a lot of ordnance. Every shot we take is not going to be perfect. You can believe that, right? We're going to have some duds. We're going to miss. You know, we're going to have some targets that aren't correct. Whatever that might be, I've got to be able to sustain that, okay? That's the issue. So ordnance is a problem. Repair parts. You know, I talked about how we underfund every year the foundry. Another bill payer for me has always been, we push to the next fiscal year the requisitions for that current year's replacement parts. So we now have, I don't know, it's a number in the billions of dollars of spare parts that have not been purchased by the Navy. That worries me, okay? That's a problem. And I'd say last is just making sure that the training I give you to prepare to go into harm's way is hard enough, complex enough, integrated enough, sophisticated enough that I have no doubt that you're going to go do what you need to do and you come back to your families alive, well, and live to fight another day. So those are the things that are on my mind.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Guess we're coming down the last few here.
Good morning, sir. I'm ITG Clauser.
Good morning.
Aboard America's favorite USS Carl Vinson.
There it is. Okay. Right.
So my question is for you.
I find it interesting. Let me just say this before you give me your question. How the pocket of clapping is really isolated to only those on the actual unit itself. There's no love in the room here. I sense there might be some competition, V8. Yeah, that's good. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
So I just read your article, sir. One size fits all. So
Yeah.
my question to you is, are these assets, these unmanned vessels, going to be implemented into the strike group, or are they going to be standalones?
Yes and yes, okay? Today, we are doing unmanned in the subsea, on the surface, and certainly in the air, and have been for decades. Okay, we have been doing unmanned things for a long, long time. We've been flying Predators around for a long, long time. We've been doing UVs, mapping the bottom, things for a long, long time. So everybody's kind of waking up to it now and like it's something new. It's not new. What is new about it is how I bring it together to deliver a no-kidding solution to a key operational problem as a piece of power so that it's not a gadget, okay? So I can't operate this stuff like a gadget where it has this kind of one thing it goes and does. So it's got to be able to deliver something that a commander can actually go task it to accomplish a task for it in a meaningful way and have confidence that that unmanned system can go do that. Okay, we're not there to be completely a bit in the gadget phase. It has kind of a singular purpose, like a UUV. I put it down, tell it to map the bottom. Are there any mines on the bottom? Come back, I download that and go, no mines on the bottom. I fly an ISR mission. I report down, and maybe it's dual mission. It might have a couple Hellfires on it, which is, above average in this world. So it sees a target and can service a target. That's better, but it's more things it could do, right? It's all kinds of things it could do. That's the whole premise of this MQ-25 idea. When we get that up to its full instantiation of it being not only a clandestine way to refuel our tactical aircraft, but it's ISR and in itself could carry capabilities, okay, in the ordnance. So sky's the limit once you kind of get this stuff rolling. And so, but it's got to be packaged in a way that we, one, know how to build it, sustain it, do PMS on it, right? Make it ready. How do I get it there, right? The last tactical mile. And then release the hounds and let it go do its thing so that it solves a key operational problem. There's a lot of work here that we've got to do. And what do you do again?
I'm an IT, I do cybersecurity.
Okay, all right. So I need brains on this. So if you got thoughts on it, send me a note.
Absolutely, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, was that it? We had one more, I thought. Somebody's a quitter. Who was that? I need that question. Got time. I want that one last question. Somebody was in line. Somebody get back up. Answer. I got time for one more. Let's do one more. Here we go. You got me, so you use the whole time, man. Use me up.
Morning, sir. Lieutenant Junior Greg Gordon, SEAL Team 5. Last year I was stationed in Naval Support Facility Diego Garcia. Just one recommendation. I would recommend building a military treatment facility there. The reason why, the Navy spends over $100,000 to do a medevac. They don't have the highest level of imaging right now is an X-ray. So routine things are being medevac. Also for ships visiting, small boys and submarines. It's the only medical treatment facility currently in the Indian Ocean. If we move towards conflict in Indo-Pacific,
Yeah.
to add value, sir.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Diego. It's like being on the moon, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you get a flight there about what? About every 2 or 3 days?
Every 2 or 3 days, yes.
Yeah, it's pretty remote. That's a good one. What I see, I probably will never, I'm going to be honest, I'll probably never see an MTF there. That's probably a bridge too far. But that doesn't mean that you guys can't give me some ideas that have been stationed there on how I containerize, more medical capacity there. Like, what is it that I'm missing? Am I missing X-ray? Am I missing, CT scanner? Am I missing some type of ability to do some OR? I think I could actually get after what you're talking about without the overhead of a full MTF. I mean, I can barely man the MTFs I got now. And so you're going to have a bunch of doctors and nurses to go to Diego. It might be a bridge too far. I don't know. But I do think I can get after what you're trying to tell me. And are you a corpsman?
No, sir. Supply officer.
Oh, you're a supply officer. Okay. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't see you there. Okay. All right. I got that. I'll look at that. I've never been told the medical there is not good. But it's a little bit like AUTEC. For those that have ever gone to AUTEC, it has that same kind of problem. There where we do our range down in the Caribbean. Medical's a challenge there. A little bit like China Lake, medical's a little bit of a challenge there too. So I've got these pockets of places that typically be kind of remote where I do worry about medical. If somebody has a serious condition, what do I do? So I got that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, you guys got some good questions, man. That's a tough group, V8. I thought I'd come in here and get some softballs, every one of them. I'm like, I do not know, sir. I'll look it up. I do not know, sir. I'll look it up. Okay, hey, I want to finish up so you can get back to work and do what you get paid to do. And thanks for spending an hour or so with me this morning. It means a lot to me to be with you. I feel connected when I get out and I see sailors. I really, really enjoy it. I know I seem like this old guy who runs a Navy and, I have to come to this, mandatory fund. But it really does allow me to hear what's on your mind. And the range of the questions, I will scale that range and actually build upon what I'm hearing to know that there are other things that weren't asked, but this is a tip of the iceberg kind of view of what's on your mind. So I sincerely, sincerely appreciate what you do every day. And if there's something I didn't get to, please do send me a note. Thank your families for me. Okay, we all need a support system, all of us. I don't know what I would do without my wife. When I come home every day, I just dump it all in her lap, and she takes the full load of that. And it's like, oh my God, Daryl, what do you got going on today? But she's so supportive of me, and everyone needs people in their lives like that. So as you look to your left and look to your right, and you're around, be invasive in people's lives to the extent that you see someone struggling. Okay, give them a hand, make a recommendation. Help them to actually cope with what they're going through. So many of us have come from a set of conditions in our life and been placed into this very high-performing thing we call the Navy. And some of us were more adjusted to that than others. Some of us are on a curve where we're just kind of getting up on the step and we're still struggling a bit. And we just need somebody to kind of understand where we are in that journey. And you need to reach out if that's the case, so that your shipmates can help you. And I can tell you the leadership team here on the front, I want to know that. They do. I want to know that. So again, thank you for what you do. Appreciate the opportunity to let me speak to your team, V8. I really do. And have a great, great rest of your week. And keep kicking ass and taking names. Thank you very much.